Hello, everybody. I wanted to hop on really quickly to talk a little bit about this module, just because I think it's so important what you're learning and what you're focusing on in emotional intelligence. So, I wanted to spend just a few minutes talking about that and making sure that you've looked at the PowerPoint and done the reading for the chapter as you work through your assignments for this module to finish up this semester, which is crazy to me that we're already at the end. Emotional intelligence is a really important topic for students, both high school students and college students, because it can really impact your goals. In a negative way and in a positive way. But a lot of times when we don't focus on emotional intelligence and developing those skills, it impacts us negatively because a lot of times those emotions get the best of us and kind of take over the situation. And then that impacts our goals. It impacts what we're focusing on. So in the PowerPoint for this module, there's a couple of things I just want to briefly focus on to make sure that you're aware of and that you looked at, and to really take some time. I encourage you to take some time to think about these things and to analyze yourself, kind of that same theme of being self-aware that we always talk about, to look at yourself and your own emotions and to see if this is an area that you need to improve or maybe learn some new strategies to help you. So I wrote a couple of things down just so I could remember that I wanted to talk to you about. But the importance of emotional intelligence overall, when we talk about successful students versus struggling students, I think it's really important to know that when you're a successful student, you are aware of your own emotions and you're able to control them so that you can control those emotions, even if it's a very difficult situation or even if you're trying to handle many different emotions at once. You have some sense of control. Or if you can't control them and you are overwhelmed, you have the knowledge and the power that the best decision is going to be to step away for a minute, to take a break from whatever it is that you're trying to handle so that you can regroup and refocus and not let those emotions make the decisions for you. Struggling students tend to not have high emotional intelligence, and they really do let the emotions control, or as your book calls it, hijack your life. And so those constant feelings of stress and pressure and being tired and overwhelmed and all of those things, that runs a struggling student's life. And so they're constantly on the back end of those emotions, trying to control it, trying to get on the other side to reach their goals, and they're not able to. So it's really, really important as a student that you develop strategies to be able to cope and handle your emotions so that they don't run your life or control your situation. In the PowerPoint, it talks about how do we know our own emotions? What are some things that we should be looking at? And so I really liked this slide because it just has some simple things to focus on. The first one is building a vocabulary of feelings. And this seems a little silly. It might seem a little elementary because it's like, okay, we all know what feelings are, right? I mean, we know what it means to be happy. We know what it means to be sad, those types of things. But it is really important to be able to express that effectively. And to express it as specifically as possible so that other people around you understand and can relate to what you're going through. So definitely we all understand the universal word of sadness. I mean, we all know what that means. However, what sadness means to me and what that feels like for me could be completely different than what it feels like for one of you. So there are different, there's a spectrum of emotions that come with sadness. And so if you just tell somebody, I'm sad today, yes, they're going to get the overall, feeling that you're sad, you're not having the best day, but they may not know what that means specifically, right? They're not going to understand, okay, sad, just like, something happened this morning that upset you, sad that you're dealing with a major life event, sad that maybe you physically don't feel well today, or you didn't get enough sleep, or someone said something unkind to you. So it really is important to build a vocabulary to really try to figure out what words can I use to express myself in the best possible way. This comes up a lot with me and my husband when we talk about, like, if we're upset about a situation or angry. We've learned that it doesn't really help to tell the other person that we're mad, because usually I don't even need to tell him I'm mad, or I'm sure I don't need to tell him that I'm mad. We can tell that the other person is mad or upset. But what we really need to do is to be able to use words to explain, what is the madness? What does that look like? Why are we upset? The other thing is to be mindful of emotions as they're happening. And sometimes this is really hard, especially when you're in a situation where multiple emotions are being thrown at you at the same time. But it's really important to try to force your brain to slow down a little bit and process, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Because oftentimes one emotion gets masked by the other emotion, or we may feel like it's anger, like we're angry, but really when we stop and think for a minute, it's not really angry. Maybe it's disappointment, or it's something else, but we're not identifying it, we're not recognizing it very well because there's so many things going on. So it's really important to try to stop and figure out, how do I feel, and why do I feel that way. For your journal, I gave you that exercise where I just gave you some simple sentence starters. And I said, I want you to finish these sentences with the first thing that you can think of. And that exercise was intended to get you to recognize your emotions and to be mindful of your emotions. So I feel happy when. What is the first thing that comes to your head of when a situation that you feel happy in, or whatever the case may be. So this is a strategy that I recommend students use all the time. If you get in a situation, especially when emotions are high, or maybe people are arguing, or there's a lot of stress, stop for a minute and just think in your own head, or you could even say it out loud if you felt safe enough with the people that you were with. Why are we feeling this way? Like, what are we all feeling? Why are we feeling this way? And then that way you can kind of attack it and have a strategy to figure it out. And that goes along with the other one, which is understanding what is triggering that. Why are you having that emotion? A lot of times there's something else going on that's triggering the emotion that we're having. So I'll give an example of myself. This often happens, and I know this about myself, so I have to be very aware of it. But when I'm stressed, or I'm tired and I have a lot going on at work, that usually comes out in frustration, or I have a lack of patience with my kids at home. And so I may get really angry because the trash wasn't taken out or the dishes weren't done. And I super overreact to that situation. It's like, it's not that big of a deal that they forgot the trash. But what's triggering that emotion is I'm already tired from the day, right? I'm already frustrated from everything that I just tried to do in my workday. And then I come home and it's like, oh, like these things weren't done. And so it is important that you can recognize, what is the emotion behind what's happening. And is it really that bad? Is it really that emotion that high, or is there something else going on? And then the last one is recognizing the difference between a feeling and resulting actions. And I always tell students, you should not try to make important decisions while you're experiencing strong emotion. That's a really difficult time to be making decisions, because no matter how hard you try, if you're in a situation of high emotion, it's going to be very difficult for that not to sway your decision or to not affect your decision. So you should try not to be making, especially major decisions or decisions that you can't back out of or you can't change your mind while you're experiencing strong emotion. You should give yourself a break and some time to say, you know what, I'm very upset right now, and I don't think that I can decide on this. I need some time. I need to take some time to think about this. So it's really important to recognize the difference between, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now, or in the moment, this is how I feel, but I need to stop and think about it. I should not have to take any action right now. I should not have to make a decision. I honestly don't even necessarily have to talk or to say anything right now. I can take the time to stop and get my emotion under control before I move on. And I think a lot of times arguments are the result of not doing this. We don't stop and think about our feelings and the actions and the way we're speaking to each other. And you go back and forth because you're in that state of high emotion. And so it is really important to try to stop and regroup and think about, what emotions am I experiencing right now? So I really wanted to share this slide. The other slides in the PowerPoint are, I think, also extremely effective. They have different emotions, and then it gives you strategies for how to deal with that. So when I'm feeling sad, what are some things I can do to try to deal with that? When I am feeling stressed, what are some things that I can do to deal with that? And many of you, that was an emotion that came up a lot in your journal. For those of you that have already submitted the journal for this module, is that you're feeling stressed, which makes sense. It's the end of the semester. You have a lot going on. And so, that emotion of stress, or just constantly feeling under pressure or anxious, is pretty typical, I think, for this time of the semester. Not to mention, we're all dealing with COVID, and many of you might also be dealing with other personal things. So those slides in the PowerPoint give you concrete strategies of things you can do. And some of those you might already use. I mean, little things like listening to music or, things like that that can help you. You might already do those, but there might be others on there that you didn't think of and could help you. So I strongly recommend that you look through the rest of the PowerPoint and kind of take into account those strategies. The other thing that this chapter talks about that I really wanted to focus on, because it's just a little bitty part of the chapter. And so if you were kind of just skimming, you might have even missed it. But it talks about strawberry moments. And I first learned about strawberry moments when I was in college to become a teacher. And it was a concept, it was a term that I had not heard of before. No one had ever used the phrase strawberry moment with me. And I didn't really exactly understand what it meant until that class, until we talked about it. And so strawberry moments, and I encourage you to go back in the chapter and kind of read that little section, but it focuses on the ability to find some sort of joy or happiness or positive attribute no matter what situation you're in. So literally, no matter what, no matter how negative or how sad or how overwhelming or how stressed your current situation may be, looking for just that one little moment, that one little strawberry on the vine that you could look at and say, you know what, that was positive. That made a difference. That made me feel better. Even if in the big picture, you're still in, a negative place. One of the things that I think about when I think of this is, I don't know if I've shared with you guys before, but I had two cousins who I was extremely close with that got in a car accident, and one of them passed away. The other one made it, but he had a lot of injuries and kind of a long road to recovery. But we were in the hospital for a week with both of them, and that was literally probably the most horrific, difficult, overwhelming, sad week of my life. Like, I would not wish that on anyone that has to experience that of a death of a loved one in such a tragic circumstance. And if any of you have ever experienced something like that, you know what I'm talking about. But it was awful. But in that week of literally the most difficult week of my life, and I've lost my cousin who I was extremely close with, and my other cousin's fighting for his life, and we have family coming in and out, I remember seeing and finding these little strawberry moments, even though it's like I was not focusing on that. I was not focusing on happiness or joy or anything positive. I mean, I was, just under this blanket of darkness and heaviness, and like, how are we going to survive? How are we going to be able to move on from this? But even in those moments, there were those strawberry things there. The nurses, kindness from nurses, kindness from people in the waiting room, just little things that if I look back at it now, it's like those were there even in that darkest time of my life. So that's what the strawberry moment is trying to focus on, even in those worst case scenarios or situations, what little nugget, what little moment is maybe right there that I can focus on. In my family, for my kids, we have what we call good point, bad point. And so every night at dinner, you share one good point from the day, and then you can share a bad point. And the rule is you can't share a bad point. You can't complain or focus on the negative unless you have a good point to counteract it. So, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes there's days where it's just like, man, I have 10 things that I want to talk about right now that are negative, but I'm really struggling to come up with one positive thing. But we all kind of sit there and help each other think, okay, think through your whole day. What is one positive thing? Did someone smile at you? Did someone hold the door open for you? Was there, what was there? That there has to be something in the day that brought you some joy. So I encourage you to think about that and how that affects you, and then also how that affects other people. So maybe you can be the strawberry moment for someone else, that they're experiencing a bad day and you have no idea, and you open the door for them, or you smile at them, or you pay for their coffee, or whatever the case may be, and you become their strawberry moment. So I really encourage you to think about that concept. And that really ties in with one of the assignments for this module, which is probably one of my favorite assignments from this course, which is the random acts of kindness. And so I hope that you've looked at that already. Some of you have turned it in. Some of you have already been doing your acts of kindness, but this assignment does require a little bit of thinking ahead of time. Even though it is random, it's random acts of kindness, but you can't wait until, the night before this is due, because you do need to go out and actually um, be kind to other people. Think of ways that you can be kind. And so I always love reading these. I love to read about the different things that students did and how that impacted the people that they were helping, and then also how we feel, like, because research has proven that when we do acts of kindness for other people, or we bring joy to other people's life, the joy that we feel is just as much, if not greater. So it's always, I just love reading these, and I hope that you um, watch the video that I posted with it as well, of the experiment that they did of acts of kindness and how that impacted them as a group, and obviously the people that they did the acts of kindness for. So I look forward to getting those assignments in. I am going to post an extra credit assignment. Some of you have been asking about some extra credit. So I am going to give you one extra credit opportunity, this module that goes along with acts of kindness. And so I'll post that in Blackboard as well for you to look at. And I really hope some of you participate in it. It's a little out of some people's comfort zone to do this, but I love watching the videos and just watching how people react to what this is, to what this assignment is. So I will post that on Blackboard as well for you. But really, just overall, I encourage you to think about your own emotions, to think about how do your emotions impact you on a daily basis? How do they sometimes get in your way of the goals? How do they impact your relationships with other people? And to really be aware of those. Obviously, one of the main things that we have focused on this semester is self-awareness, and how important that's going to be for you as a college student and as you move through your career and your life. That you have to have some of that ability to be self-aware and to think about, what can I do better? And I think when it comes to emotions, sometimes that's hard to do because the emotions take over and it's hard to think clearly, but it's so important that we have that self-awareness, and that we're able to control those emotions to be successful. Okay, so I hope you take in all the information in this module and really think about how you can apply it to your own life. And I look forward to seeing your assignments from the random acts of